Alright guys, so this is going to be the first in a series of videos addressing the upcoming documentary film called We Steal Secrets, the Story of Wikileaks. Now the title in itself is a huge lie, basically. Wikileaks don't steal secrets. That is the implication, of course. We steal secrets, the story of Wikileaks. The quote itself, "We steal secrets," came from CIA Director Michael Hayden, who was referring to what the US actually does. That the CIA, that the US government steals secrets. Ironic, yeah. But obviously the title there is supposed to be inflammatory and a descriptor of WikiLeaks. They don't steal secrets, they are given information from government and or corporate insiders, this kind of thing, alright? But anyway, the film is not out yet, but there is a trailer out, so I'm going to do a little kind of watch and answer to the trailer, and I will be doing a more in-depth series of videos, hopefully when the film comes out. Now, you know, Alex Gibney, the director, his position on these issues is already very clear. His bias is already very clear. It's quite a cartoon depiction of Assange as a villain. And this is admitted as much by several reviewers that have watched the entire documentary already. I'm going to link some in the lower bar. And in fact, before we go to have a look at the trailer, I'm going to answer some of the things that are mentioned in a review of the main film on a website called The Verge. Now, it just quite clearly says, blatantly says, that, you know, Assange is painted as the perfect villain. Whereas Manning, they tried to paint Manning as some sort of a weak, confused figure with all these personal issues. Apparently they put quite a lot of emphasis on his struggle with gender identity and all this, but of course that's been extremely unfair to Manning, because even after over a year of solitary confinement, I think it's getting off for 2.5 years in total of being incarcerated, and even after all of the psychological games that have been played on him in various prisons, Manning has stayed resolutely, you know, for a solid of character, to the point where when he was finally allowed to give his own personal statement in his trial recently, he read out a 32-page statement all about why he did what he did, and it was all, of course, very clearly linked to you know, wanting to get the truth out there, wanting to inform the public debate, wanting to it went into great detail about his motivations, which are all to do with truth, transparency, democracy, and all this kind of thing. And not a hint of weakness was seen in his appearance at the court case, even after all that punishment. So that's really unfair to try and paint Manning as this kind of confused, weak figure with all these issues. Yeah, he might have gender identity issues, but that's not been apparent in any of his public appearances so far at the trial, and it's not been apparent in anything that he said or done. So it's completely irrelevant to put that stuff up. But to paint Assange as a villain, even the concept that would be the case in any documentary about WikiLeaks gives you an idea as to the bias and where it's coming from. Now, this documentary, We Steal Secrets, the story of WikiLeaks, is being funded by Universal, so we know where the money's coming from there. But to get to the point, okay, WikiLeaks has never been charged with a single crime. I think there's been over 300 legal challenges. They've won every single one. They have never broken a law or been charged with a crime, ever. WikiLeaks is spotless when it comes to criminal charges. Okay, now Assange, as the head of WikiLeaks, again, has never been charged with a crime relating to his activity with WikiLeaks. He's also, they in this documentary they talk about the Sweden situation. He's also still not been charged there either. He's still just wanted for questioning, but that's another issue that we'll talk about later. But so this article in The Verge, now just listen to this. This is, I don't know The Verge's political stance or bias. I don't know where they're supposed to come on the political scale, but this little bit here just gives away how badly they failed in their assessment of this documentary. It says, Gibney succeeds in putting together a well-rounded picture of the WikiLeaks saga, although he's missing the voices of any ardent Assange supporters. So it's well-rounded, and yet it doesn't have a single WikiLeaks or Assange supporter. What's wrong with that picture? Yeah. Apparently Adrian Lamore is reduced to tears in his interview. Oh, the poor lamb. The poor lamb, Adrian Lamore. You must be riddled with, with self-doubt and concern. And no, he's really not. If you know anything about Adrian Lamore, the guy is an attention whore and is a habitual liar and manipulator. And he's been quite proudly and brazenly given interviews since he was revealed as the guy who shopped Manning, and he's never seemed remorseful in the slightest. In fact, he's absolutely relished the attention. So to have a clip of Lamore in tears in this documentary, what are we supposed to do there? What are we supposed to do with that? It's amazing. Anyway, but to paint Assange as the villain in this whole thing, we'll get to the reasons as to why that's ridiculous shortly. So, should we just go to it then? Right, I'm just seeing if there's anything more in the Verge article that I'd want to talk about before getting to the to the video here. But I think we can start. Right, let's see what we got here.
Disclosures like these tear at the fabric of responsible government.
We're looking at all the things that we can do to stem the flow of this information.
Well, first of all, the whole reason it was leaked in the first place is because you weren't being a responsible government. That's clearly stated in Manning's rationale, wherever he's talked about this. It's because you weren't being a responsible government. That's why this leak happened in the first place. Tens of thousands of unreported deaths. Hundreds of thousands of deaths, possibly written up as insurgents when actually civilians, killing of civilians blatantly in the videos that we saw, collateral murder, spying on supposed allies in the EU through the Cablegate this was, and dozens and dozens and dozens of very significant disclosures about the underhand and irresponsible behaviour of the US government and some of its partners as well. Of course, there was revelations about the UK storing illegal cluster bombs, amongst many other things. So this trailer, at least, I'll see the full documentary, but the trailer at least gives platform to State Department officials spouting absolute bullshit with no challenge to those statements.
Leak in the history of this particular planet.
So my name is Julian Assange. I'm the editor of WikiLeaks. We help you get the truth out. If you get this material, give it to us, no questions asked, and you'll help change history.
First of all, did you notice how choppy that was? How he chopped that together, those words, to make it sound so simplistic and irresponsible, maybe, was the intention there. Just a little subtle point there, but obviously edited the clip there so that he just said, yeah, give us your information, no questions asked, and that's about it, really. No, there's a lot more to Assange's and WikiLeaks' philosophy behind what they're doing there. And whenever you can see a full-length interview with him, it's very clear that he's thought this through to a great deal. The clip before that kind of the audio kind of cut off there, kind of strange that that guy said this is the biggest leak of information on this particular planet. On this that just struck me as weird that would even need to be said. On this particular planet, it's the biggest leak we know of. Bit weird. Anyway.
The internet lets governments get more information than ever, but it lets citizens do the same.
Here was this kid who had reached out in confidence and said, hey, I'm leaking secrets.
The consequences of the release of these documents are potentially severe and dangerous.
Right, the consequences of the leak of these documents are potentially severe and dangerous. A line that's been trotted out again and again and again since the leaks came out, and guess what? Not one single person is reported to have come to harm as a result of these leaks going out there. On the contrary though, many thousands of people have actually come to harm as a result of the actions documented in these leaks. There's no competition. If you're going to put a statement forward from a politician saying something like that there's potential harm from these leaks, give us one example, just one example of someone coming to harm as a result of these leaks. You can't do it. There hasn't been one. I'll say it again because it needs stating as many times as possible. Tens of thousands of people have come to harm and died as a result of the actions detailed in these leaks. Leaks that are a lot to do with the Iraq War, that is widely accepted now to have been, basically an illegal war. Of course, at the time they made it legal, but based on lies. That is widely accepted now that the Iraq War was based on lies. We shouldn't have been there. Therefore, completely immoral war to have been involved in, which is par for the course, I guess, with US and UK over the last few decades. But anyway, so given that acceptance of that fact, you would have thought that anything addressing these leaks would have been more sympathetic to the usefulness of knowing about the truth of those wars. But just to give a platform to these politicians spouting this absolutely baseless and empty statement about this potential harm when there has been proven to be none.
The Army has detained a U.S. soldier in connection with the leak of this classified video.
2 of the men killed worked for the Reuters news agency.
Journalists' cameras were mistaken for weapons.
Well, it wasn't just the fact that cameras were mistaken for weapons though, was it? No, it was the fact that an entire group of people, many of them weren't even holding these cameras that apparently looked like rocket launchers, they all got mowed down. Even the guy crawling on the floor, half dead, they were still dying for an opportunity to finish him off. And then, contrary to the rules of war, apparently, when people came to try and help the injured, which is allowed, internationally recognised that is, you're allowed to do that, is to go and help the injured after an attack like that. A car pulled up with children in it, and the soldiers knew there was children in it, and they opened fire on that van of people who were just clearly trying to help the injured. So it wasn't just a case of mistaking, oh, they made a mistake. Oh, no. It was far more worse than that. It was a bloodlust that was quite disgusting to see in several instances throughout the course of that clip. And if you've seen Collateral Murder, you know exactly what I mean. So that's underselling the graveness of that. But again, this is just the trailer. Let's see if the main documentary goes into a bit more detail about the despicable nature of that video clip.
Prime suspect is 22-year-old Bradley Manning.
There was a responsibility to the needs of the many.
We promised Source that we would publish everything.
About 1 o'clock in the morning, I took delivery on a USB stick of 390,000 secret US military records.
There was material which could get people hurt. Julian said, if an Afghan...
Again, there you go, Aaron. There's material that could get people hurt. Again, surely by now, this is what, nearly 3 years later, you think you'd have something to go on to show, this is the risk that it created, that leak going out there, or this is the harm that came because of those leaks. Still not a single piece of example to hold up there. So again, empty, baseless accusations as to the potential harm of these leaks, when not once yet in this trailer has anybody associated with the documentary commented on the graveness of the stuff that was getting exposed.
Forces, he deserves to die.
They might already have
That's another clip. See, that's the audio cut the first bit of that off. What that is, that's repeating another accusation against Assange that he reported to have said in conversation at some point that if you are an informant, then you deserve to die. Now, there's no proof of this. This is just a rumour basically that's gone around, and it's used again to sully Assange's character. Well, he doesn't care about informants. You know who doesn't care about collateral? You know who doesn't care about that? that'd be the US and the UK governments that are carrying out these attacks over there. The hundreds of thousands of people that have been killed as a result of these invasions, the ongoing drone strikes, because this is unchallenged and they haven't been challenged on this stuff, and they're carrying on to do the same shit. And now they have a kill list and they can kill their own citizens now with drones, and that's not even challenged in any big way by the media. It's a slippery slope to go down, and we've seen the effects now that as a result of not sticking up for WikiLeaks to an extent that would have been helpful, and not continuing to support WikiLeaks, we're seeing the effects now. They are expanding their war against whistleblowers. It is now a full-blown war against journalism. Of course, we've seen the Obama administration spying on the AP, the Associated Press's phone records, and more besides. They've been tracking a Fox journalist, and they're expanding this war against whistleblowers. It is now a war against journalism. Anything to do with trying to expose wrongdoing in government or even keep a check on what they're doing is being targeted as somehow almost criminal. So, and here we go. Well, this is I've paused it on a piece here that has a piece from David Lee of The Guardian, who were initially supportive, then factions of the Guardian became hostile towards Assange, seemingly over personal issues rather than anything to do with serious professional matters that are at hand. But we have the headline here: WikiLeaks has blood on its hands over Afghan warlocks, claims US official. Again, absolutely no proof whatsoever. Completely empty accusation. Whereas if we flip it, it's very, very, very easy to see that the US officials, admin, has blood all over its hands, arms, feet, face, legs, everywhere. It's covered in stuff. So that's just completely ironic and quite sick, actually. But David Lee, it's ironic that this article here is from David Lee. This is a guy who forced the full exposure of the Cablegate cables. Now, what happened there was, and of course Assange and WikiLeaks were blamed for this, but what happened was David Lee had the genius idea to use the actual real password for the unredacted Cablegate file as a chapter title in his book. So he didn't, could have used some dummy just to illustrate the point, but no, he used the actual real password to a file that he had been given access to whilst working with the Cablegate files as a chapter title for his book. Now, possibly unbeknownst to him, maybe not, we don't know, but at the same time, Daniel Domscheitberg, who is a guy who defected from WikiLeaks, and he is a guy whose book, another WikiLeaks film, would be based on, starring Benedict Cumberbatch. It's coming out next year, I think, or later this year. But Daniel Domscheitberg was trying to curry favour in social circles and trying to impress people by giving a secret URL for the Cablegate file. So those two pieces of information were out there: the secret URL for this Cablegate file and the real password for that file by David Lee. Those two people, who were at that time now quite hostile towards WikiLeaks, had done the irresponsible things that led to those files being out there unredacted. And of course that was blamed on Assange and WikiLeaks. Just another example of the spaghetti junction of issues around WikiLeaks.
Of some young soldier.
Scared the hell out of a lot of people. How are we going to stop it? And how far has it gone already?
The sort of aging student hobo was a rock star, changing.
This aging student hobo was now a rock star. Let's just remember though that WikiLeaks operated without a figurehead for 4 years. Okay, and Assange only came out as a figurehead, as a face for the company when it was required because of the magnitude of this load of leaks that they were about to deal with. Now he understands how the media works, and to start with, it worked in their favour that they had a figurehead, they had someone to talk to, they had a face to go with the organisation, and we know how the media works, and that facilitated a much smoother transition and facilitated lots of coverage for those leaks. And in the beginning it did help. But yeah, for 4 years WikiLeaks operated without any frontman. Assange was completely anonymous. So I don't think you can say that this guy was desperate for fame, wanted to be a rock star. The fame and the infamy was a result of the way that he's been reported by the press. He doesn't have control over that. He can make his statements, he can do what he does with his organisation, but that's not under his control. If he ends up having an image as a rock star, like you said, but he really doesn't. He really is one of the most vilified men, in politics currently. There really is the amount of support is kind of dwarfed, really, for the amount of attacks and hostility that he's getting in terms of media coverage, at least. But to call him a rock star, that's not something he either solicited or has any control over. So I mean, this documentary that's supposedly so well balanced without actually having anybody who is an ardent Assange supporter in it, chooses to use such relevant clips as an image where you see it in a moment, an image of him bouncing on a trampoline, and apparently also a clip of him dancing in a club. What in the frig has that got to do with anything?
Wearing a bulletproof vest. He'd been trained in evasive tactics.
This idealist became something else.
I'm untouchable now in this country.
Was that cherry picking much? Cherry picking much? I think so.
Sweden issued a warrant for the arrest of Julian Assange
On suspicion of molestation.
Well, actually, Sweden didn't issue a warrant for the arrest of Julian Assange. What actually happened there was a private prosecutor put in a request through the Interpol red notice system, the European arrest warrant. And now, I've done a whole video on that topic. If you haven't seen it already, I'll link it in the low bar below there. But a private prosecutor put in the request for this extradition, and this is after he had stayed in Sweden for several weeks, offering himself to be interviewed. They turned him down. As soon as he left the country, the private prosecutor put this application in for the arrest warrant. The European arrest warrant had updates in 2003 that basically killed due process. It does not require you to have any habeas corpus evidence. It does not require you to give any kind of real solid details on the nature of the accusations. It just requires that accusation has been made and that the request has been put in. And through a very convoluted, a succession of appeals and court appearances, it was apparently agreed that this private prosecutor could be classified as a judicial authority and therefore have the authority to put in that request in the first place. Think about what that means. A solicitor, a private lawyer, is given the status of judicial authority. That means a court, right, basically, to say that they've requested that his presence there just for an interview, not for being charged with a crime, just for an interview that can be done in the UK, that can be done in the Ecuadorian embassy, that could even be done by video link. There is precedent for that. Sweden has previously interviewed an accused murderer in Serbia. They flew to Serbia to interview an accused murderer. There's precedent for that. There's no legal block to do the interview here. That whole thing is about getting him to Sweden just for an interview that could be done here. And again, they have not given a single reason why they can't do it here, because there is no reason. But yeah, so there's a lot to do with that issue. I don't want to get too muddled up in this video, so let's carry on.
It really didn't want this to be in the papers.
I have never said that this is a honey trap. I have never said that it is not a honey trap.
Everyone has secrets. If they are broadly known, you cannot accomplish your work.
I'm not going to talk about that.
But it does affect WikiLeaks.
I may be very...
Right, so there again, yeah. So he's there to talk about WikiLeaks, and this interviewer wants to talk to him about this sexual assault allegation, which started off as an attempt to get him to compel him to take an STD test. They never went there to report a rape in the slightest in the first case. There's lots of other problems with that issue. I'll probably do another video about that, because I just want something to be searchable that is linkable to this film and to address some of the things Alex Gibney has been saying about that Sweden situation in interviews and no doubt in this documentary, but I'll do that in a later video. And I think that's the end of this.
Candid. Nation states need to be secret in order to be successful. We steal secrets.
It's not about WikiLeaks, it's about transparency. Who gets to control information?
Right, so there you go. So there you have it, yeah. So that was a quote from that government official there, that we steal secrets. That's not actually what WikiLeaks does. But anyway, I'm going to end this video here because it's long enough, but there's loads more to say. Hopefully we're going to do a series covering the myriad problems with this documentary. So see you guys later. Bye-bye.